Now live from New York with more. And Stephen A., let's kind of pick up where Woj left off. Again, we know that the Warriors are going to now play their game tomorrow against the Nets without fans. We know the league was trending toward doing the same thing everywhere, league-wide, for an unknown period of time. And now we're hearing potentially moving games to cities that haven't been affected yet. What's your gut right now, Stephen A.?
Well, my gut tells me that they're not going to even move the games to cities that haven't been affected, because obviously with the World Health Organization classifying this now officially as a pandemic, this is an incredibly serious issue. And the objective is to make sure that the disease simply doesn't spread. And if you are already in an area that hasn't been infected, remember, according to various reports that have been out there, Sage, you could literally have the virus but not know anything for several days at a time. So I can't believe that, knowing that nugget of information, that the leagues are going to say, OK, let's take the games and take them to areas, transition them to areas that haven't been affected yet, because the reality is that you don't know who is infected or who is not infected. And that could ultimately lead to its dissemination throughout the country. So these are the kind of things that they have to be careful about. I think they obviously are. We obviously have to place our faith in them. The players' health obviously is paramount, but so is the fans. And I think that's why you see the measures that have been taken actually being taken, because everybody recognizes how serious this is.
And we absolutely need to focus on everybody, the fans. But doesn't that include the players, Stephen A., when it is one of the most physical games out there? I mean, there's never a moment that a body is not touching another body out there. At what point, at this point, it wouldn't surprise me if they say no games, because of course it's going to spread when it's that physical, right?
Unfortunately, I don't think a move like that drastic would be made unless a player gets infected. If a player gets infected, then I think that you'll see the cancellation of the games. But as long as there's no diagnosis of a player contracting the virus, I don't believe that you'll witness owners losing the kind of money that they would stand to lose if indeed the games were canceled. Remember, Brian Windhorst came on Get Up this morning and then First Take with yours truly and Max Kellerman and Molly, and he highlighted how the playoffs in LA alone is projected to make in excess of, or generate in excess of $100 million. And so when you're talking about that kind of money, and especially the impact that it would have on salary caps moving forward in the event that events are canceled, I think the last resort is going to be the cancellation of those games, unless a player is identified as having contracted the virus. If that doesn't happen, I don't see the cancellation of games taking place, but I do see a multitude of games being played in front of empty arenas.
Absolutely. It only takes one player, and then everything goes more downhill from there. I got to ask you, though, you live in New York, you work in New York. The state of New York, not just the state of New York, now has the second highest number of reported cases of coronavirus. The Seattle area at number 1. New York is always kind of an invincible place there. That's the feeling in New York. Describe what you're feeling out there as you walk those streets. Are people talking about this?
You got a lot of people that are nervous. Yeah. You don't see too much handshaking. You see fist bumps at the very, very least, or people might elect to hug one another, but they're not really touching one another the way that they used to. The embraces just seem to be the same. No matter where you go, people are talking about it. People have been a bit reticent to embrace it with the seriousness that it deserved up until about 24 hours ago, in my estimation. Over the last 24 hours in New York City, I've seen vastly different behavior than what I saw just 2 days ago. The level of nervousness has elevated exponentially, and obviously people are taking it incredibly seriously now, particularly when you hear about Japan, South Korea, Italy, canceling events, people not being allowed to show up to events. Now you're hearing about the NBA collaborating with the NHL, MLB, etc., about not having fans participate or banning the media from locker room access to players. When you hear these kind of things going on and you see the potential that exists to cost these leagues money, you know it must be serious if leagues are willing to cost themselves money in order to engage in levels of precaution and what have you. You know at that particular moment in time, it's no joke, because people are not trying to lose money, except for now. They're willing to lose money for safety purposes, which is the wise decision.
It feels much different than it did, to your point, just a couple of hours ago. That's what happens when the WHO comes out and uses the word pandemic. Stephen A. Smith with us live from New York. Thanks. Courtside from the big game in Dallas. And Tom, obviously the games are going on tonight, including right where you are. I know you've been watching and monitoring the situation. What can you tell us about the reaction there to possibly having to play games in empty arenas?
Sage, that in essence, this could be an effective snapshot in time of the future to come, meaning right now, players in the earliest stages of shoot-around for the upcoming game tonight between the Nuggets and the Mavericks, fewer than 100 people around the court right now, the vast majority of them essential personnel. And you could hear, as players and staff discuss, open wonderment about whether this is what it will be like, where you can hear the ball echo, where you can hear chatter reach to the upper reaches of the bowls because there are no fans around. The context here, consider the Dallas Mavericks have the longest sellout streak in NBA history, dating all the way back to 2001, more than 800 games. That sellout streak will remain intact tonight, but Mark Cuban did come out and he suggested that the oldest fans in their fan base and those who perhaps might be compromised in terms of their health right now not come to the game. It'll be fascinating to see what the atmosphere is like. Players wondering just as much as the rest of us where this will trend.
Obviously, Tom, it's the players, it's the teams, but how about those workers? How about the vendors, people who are living paycheck to paycheck so often? So this obviously runs quite deep. We shall see what happens again tonight. A lot of big games going on as scheduled. Tom Rinaldi live in Dallas. Thank you. Kevin, over to you.
Sage, thank you. Tim Legler joining us. Now, we heard Jay Bilas talk about it, and as well as Sean Farnham talk about it with college players, right? With the tournament next week and not playing in front of fans. As a professional player, you can give me that perspective of what's it like, because the Warriors are going to do that tomorrow night against the Nets. What's it like, the mental aspect of having potentially no fans in a stadium that seats about 18 to 19,000?
A similar effect. And people can think just because you're getting a paycheck that means, oh, you're a professional, you're going to show up and the job's going to look the same. No, it's not. Not in that situation, because it's going to be sloppy. Because what the crowd does and what the energy in the building does, it makes everything sharper. It makes every cut sharper. It makes your attention to detail sharper. It makes your focus so much sharper when you shoot a basketball. So to think about playing in an arena without NBA fans, without any energy created there whatsoever, obviously it's not something I ever did. So it's almost impossible for me to really know what the effect is. But I just think about the adrenaline rush that I had every single time I stepped on a court in a college game or professional game, and not having that adrenaline there. Even though it feels like it's a real game because the officials are there, teams all have their uniforms on. This isn't a pickup game like in the summer. This is an official game in an arena with no one there to watch, no energy created. I can't really say, Kevin, because I've never had to do it, but I can't imagine that that's something that's going to lead to a very good product.
Okay, then also as a player, the idea that, okay, the fans are out there for safety and health reasons, but if a player has this virus, and there is that unknown that nobody knows, does that affect you as a player playing defense on the floor right now?
That's an interesting one, because we haven't had that situation yet. And I saw recently a situation where they were telling teams not to shake hands after the game. And the coaches say, well, wait a second, they just leaned on each other for 40 minutes. They were touching each other, sweating on each other, breathing on each other. What's a handshake after the game? So would I play differently if I thought there was a possibility someone on the other team had the virus? It's a good question.
It's unknown.
It really is. This is all uncharted territory, obviously, something that's completely unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it. I do know this from an athlete's perspective, and the college guys, especially, if I could just chime in on that. I was fortunate enough to play in the NCAA tournament, and I only got to do it my senior year. There are going to be guys in that boat. Yeah. It's not going to feel like you are in the NCAA tournament for those kids. I understand why they're doing it, but I also have empathy for the athlete as well going through that experience.
And of course, health is the biggest concern, the biggest priority.